everyone. Is this working? So thank you so much for coming. I also want to thank, we have 32 live streamers also from around the world joining us for what is going to be a very special night. My name is Todd Ormiston. I'm the executive director here at North Country School and Camp Treetops, and I'm so excited to be part of this learning experience that we're all going to go through in the next hour to hour and a half. North Country School and Camp Treetops have been committed to inclusion for over 100 years, and we're very proud of our history and tradition. But we will also be the first to recognize that we have a ways to go ourselves. And every one of these conversations, and most importantly, the action that comes out of these conversations, leads to greater inclusivity of everyone. And so we're so excited to have Dom and Myrna here tonight to tell a little bit about their stories, and then we'll also have a Q&A at the end. So with that, I'd like to introduce Matt Smith, who is the director of North Country School.
Thanks, Todd, and so good to see everyone here from the greater community. Really happy to have all these friends of North Country School and Camp Treetops here tonight. So thank you for joining us. I'm Matt Smith. I'm the director of school here at North Country School, and we have 85 students who are in grades 4 through 9, day and boarding here at North Country School, and they all got the opportunity to hang out with one of our presenters today, Dom Mullins. Dom was here all day long, starting at 11 a.m. for a presentation with Keene Central, with Northwood and North Country students, and then Dom spent the day with us. It was awesome. He was a great guest. Yeah, he had lunch with us, and then he led a ballet class, and then he took a bunch of students ice climbing, and it was really wonderful having him here. He's been an incredible guest. I'm really excited for all of you to hear his story, and we also have Myrna, who's incredible. Really glad to have her here with us tonight. But the person who put all this together is Miss Younga Webb, and Younga, and I'll be introducing her in a minute. She's our director of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Today is February 1st. It marks the beginning of Black History Month. And at North Country School, we really care about learning in and from the outdoors. And so what better way to celebrate the start of this month than to having two accomplished outdoors people here with us today to tell their stories. And that's thanks to Younga Webb, who's been an incredible addition to North Country School in her first year here. And we're really grateful for all the work that she does, not just today, but every day. And so I want to say thank you to Miss Younga, and introduce Younga Webb, Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion here.
Thank you, Matt. So great to see all of you. To be honest, just thinking about what I'm going to say, I am going to introduce our special guests and basically read a small snippet of their bio so that you can understand how accomplished. I don't think I have to tell you how accomplished these people are, but it's really fun to read and hear out loud again, so I definitely am going to do that. But I want to say that in addition to the great adventurous outdoorsmen that both of these individuals are, they're also extremely accomplished professional performing artists. Y'all didn't know that. Maybe you didn't know that. Dom Mullins is a professional ballet dancer, and Myrna Valerio is a professional classical singer. Also. So I say that to say, because I'm a performing arts person, and in my conversations with my lovely Todd and Matt, who thank goodness that they've just allowed me to move and go, and this is why this is so cool, because they just allow it to happen. So big ups to them. Let's give them a round of applause. I want to say, I constantly tell them, the arts is where Black people tend to live. The arts and sports, we live there. And the arts have a foundation in all that we do. And so they're like, interesting, cool, awesome. But this is kind of like, I told you, because look at them. They really love the Everest stuff. They love all the other things, but they're also professional artists. So I just wanted to put that little seed in there because we're going to have more conversations about that. Okay, Dom Mullins, who spent the entire day with us. Dom received his PhD in sociology from the Graduate Center of the University of New York in 2013. He's a combat veteran of the Iraq War, where he served as an armor crewman. After service, Dom became a national spokesman for Iraq Veterans Against the War and worked as a United States Senate staffer on veterans' health and education issues. Dom is an enthusiastic outdoorsman and has conducted social research on the benefits of outdoor recreation, particularly mountaineering. In 2015, he conducted an ethnographic study of a group of combat veterans during their summit bid of Denali. He has also summited Mount Kilimanjaro and most recently Mount Everest. I should say Dr. Dom Mullins, and you'll hear more about him, so we're so grateful to have him. Myrna Valerio is a native of Brooklyn, New York, a former educator, a cross-country coach, an ultra runner, an obstacle course enthusiast, and an author. Her writing has been featured in Women's Running Magazine, Self Magazine Online, Outside Online, and Runner's World Magazine. Most recently, she was chosen as the 2018 National Geographic Adventurer of the Year. Myrna has worked as a member for North Country School Camp, a mentor for North Country School and Camp Treetops Access Wild Places program in 2021 and 2022. And she's also a dear friend of the community and of Todd, and we're so grateful to have her. So, without further ado, I present to you Dr. Dom Mullins.
Thank you, thank you. Oh, it's so awesome to be here with you guys today. Had a lot of fun today doing a dance clinic, speaking earlier, and doing some ice climbing as well. Right up my alley, all those things. So I want to talk to you a bit about my life trajectory. And there's some really important lessons that I learned that I want to share with you. And the first thing has to do with this sort of the relationship between these two words, success and achievement. I think for myself, particularly, I had defined success throughout my life as sort of like a plateau that I was always searching for, that I was always reaching for. And there was no sort of indicators, no definitive markers that would let me know when I got there, when I arrived there. And achievement, I saw as these sort of benchmarks that I pass along the way toward my success. Different things that I achieve, and cumulatively, they would amount to success. And that success for me was, I thought, very much like a light at the end of the tunnel that I was searching for. But I had a teacher who impressed upon me the real definition of these terms. And that was at a very young age. And I learned that actually success wasn't a destination, it wasn't the light at the end of the tunnel, but it was actually a process that was happening the whole time, that I was constantly building on. And so when I think about all these moments in my life, here in the upper left corner, I'm on Everest at Camp 3. In the middle, at the top, I'm ice climbing in Montana, Highlight Canyon. And here on the right at the top, I'm on Denali, around 14,000 feet. I'm performing as the Rat King and the Nutcracker there. Absolutely one of the greatest delights of my life. And I'm an armor crewman serving in combat here in Iraq, in the middle at the bottom. And then here has been a really great delight in my late life, and that's been teaching students, being a college professor, engaging with college students. And so when I look at all these depictions of myself, these various activities and experiences that I've had, I see them all as part of this process towards success. None of them are actually a destination. All of them are part of my whole process developing as a person and living a successful life. And this was the person who taught me this, Daniel Levins. Daniel Levins, one of the most beautiful men and teachers that I ever had and that I ever knew. Daniel Levins was a principal dancer at American Ballet Theater. He actually, if you get the opportunity, you go home and you're plucking through Netflix, check out Grease, which I'm sure everybody in this room has seen it at some point. But he's in all the dance scenes in Grease. And he's like, you can't miss him. He's like one of the most astonishing dancers there. But Daniel Levins taught me when I was a kid, he would actually instruct all of my male dance classes, all my male ballet classes. And Daniel Levins, he emphasized the importance of process. It's really astonishing the way that he did it. And he did it in two ways, actually. The first way had to do with a very basic movement. So when I taught a dance clinic earlier today, I was focusing particularly on the movement of plie. The plie, I'll just do it for you guys, right? So plie, right? A plie is when you're bending your knees, right? You're bending your knees, but it's not a destination. This is not just the plie. The plie is the process, the whole spring of you bending your knees. Why? Because a plie connects so many different movements in ballet. And you could be landing from a jump and absorbing all of that, resetting yourself in balance so that you can move on to the next movement. And a plie connects all of those movements. It binds all those destinations of movements, right? An arabesque is actually a position, right? But the plie is the process that gets you to that position. And then it'll get you to the next position, and then the next position. And so when I think more about success and I think about the lessons that Daniel Levins taught me, I think about plie as this process of building success, right? The continuous process of building success, and it never ends. Just like Daniel Levins would say, actually a plie never ends, right? Even when you get to the bottom, you're still actually maintaining this sort of spring process, right? And it's never ending. You're constantly referring to it. Now, another way that Daniel Levins explained this process, especially of dancing for me, was he would say, if you're a dancer because you like to perform, you should leave right now, right? Because performing is only like 10% of actually dancing ballet. The other 80 to 90% is you sweating in a studio when no audience is watching you, there are no accolades given to you, and actually probably a lot of more disciplinary action than accolades, right? And if you don't like that part of the process, then you don't like the process, actually, of being a dancer, and you should do something else. And so Daniel Levins taught me that when I was very young. And it resonated with me a lot, more than Daniel Levins could even know. Because at the time, when he was teaching me, I was very young. I started dancing classical ballet at the age of 9. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. I grew up, the first near decade of my life was in the projects in Coney Island. I actually was in foster home, 2 different foster homes at that time. And then I came to work with Daniel Levins, and he knew nothing about this from me. But he knew one thing about me. There was one glaring thing about me that stood out. That was I was terribly misbehaved, right? But him teaching me, spending time with me, the contact hours that I had with him, he taught me a lot, and particularly about this process of being a successful person. Not reaching a destination, a light at the end of the tunnel, but building on this process of success, and I'd be doing it my entire life. And so after ballet school, I danced ballet from 5th grade all the way through the end of high school. About a year after high school as well, and I was dancing as a professional dancer later in my high school years. And so it was very unlikely that I would wind up as a combat troupe in Iraq, right? But I wanted to go to college. And I went to college. I had to drop out because I couldn't afford it. And so then I joined the military. And just my luck, as it so happens in my life, I have the most amazing luck. I joined in the year 2000. And in 2001, I was in basic training. And then September 11th happened, right? And so this would be a part of my process. This would be a part of my process. Not some light at the end of the tunnel, but really a rugged part of my process where I had to pull on all that I was, dig deep, right, in order to get through my combat deployment in Iraq. And it was in 2004. Now, at this time, Iraq was a very dangerous place in 2004. We actually had already thought that we won the war, but we found that there was actually a different war that we were fighting, that we were present for. And so during this time, I saw so much ruin in Iraq. Like, this video is literally a pile of trash, us driving past a pile of trash in Iraq, which was a daily occurrence. The infrastructure of Iraq had fallen on its knees, and so Iraqis didn't have a way to take care of themselves, right? It was the first time that I was seeing this level of devastation. This is a convoy that I literally was riding in, and the camera, we put the camera just at the windshield to just see what happened that day. And even though that might look extraordinary to you, that was actually incredibly mundane for my experience in Iraq. This happened every day, right? And sometimes there were troops that we lost that I knew, that I worked with, and other times no one got hurt. But it was the luck of the draw all the time. When I came back from this experience in Iraq, I started to speak out against the war because certain things that I saw in the war, and I felt like maybe we shouldn't be in Iraq. And maybe it was my responsibility to say something about that based upon my experiences. And so I started to speak out against the war. And that brought me, the next step of this process, right? That brought me to being featured in a documentary. This documentary came out, I believe, in like 2006. And it helped me get some wind underneath my wings as I was doing activism work for Iraq Veterans Against the War. That was the organization I was national spokesman of. And I began to lobby Capitol Hill with this organization. Because I was lobbying Capitol Hill for Iraq Veterans Against the War, I had the opportunity to meet with Obama when he was a senator. And fortunately for me, the senator offered me a job to come work for him on Capitol Hill. And so I did. Now, I came to work on Capitol Hill after I came back from the war and graduated college. A new college graduate. Now I'm working for a top senator on veterans' health and education issues. And for many people, that's like, even for my grandmother, especially for my grandmother, she was like, why would you do anything else? That's it, you know, you're done, right? You did it, right? But for me, I didn't do it. I didn't feel like I reached some destination where I could stop. This was success, folks. I could chill out and just be like, yeah, look what I did. No, I felt like I still had a lot to give back to the veterans community. So when I left Capitol Hill, actually this was the day that I was leaving, Obama asked me where I was going. I was going to the City University of New York to do a PhD because I wanted to do studies on veterans to try to further understand the realities that veterans were facing so that I could contribute to answering some of their problems through social research. And that brought me to a very unlikely path. It's not something that I expected at all. And it's why I'm before you right now. Because when I was in graduate school, I was donating some of my time to different veterans organizations. And one of those organizations was an organization in Colorado that would provide different training for veterans in the green technology industry. And I would come out to Colorado quarterly from New York City. And I didn't have any outdoor experience at the time except my military experience. And I didn't connect my military experience really with the outdoors so much. There were experiences that I had in the military that were profound, natural, beautiful experiences in the outdoors that I never would have had I not been in the military because I grew up in Brooklyn. I had no outdoor space to play. You know, Prospect Park was wilderness to me. You know, Central Park was wilderness to me. I got lost there. It was really wilderness to me, you know? But going into the military really expanded that view. The first time that I looked at a vista that didn't have, you know, street lights and cars and buildings and concrete, I was actually in the Army going to training. And I remember that profound feeling when I looked out onto the field that we were going to be training in, and I couldn't pick out anything of the modern world. I remember that very moment, the first time that it happened, because it was that profound to me. But once I left the military, I lost all of that. There was no wilderness. I was back in Brooklyn. I was working different desk jobs. I was doing my, you know, type A desk work. And I lost all my connection to natural environment. But when I was in graduate school, donating my time in Colorado, a buddy of mine, Stacy Baird, who's like 7 feet tall, you can't tell from this picture, but he took me climbing for the first time. And it changed a lot of things for me. First of all, Stacy's also an Army vet. It was the first time that I got to hang out in a natural environment, just me and another Army vet, just hiking. And we started to do, well, Army stuff. We just started to talk about everything while we were walking. We were laughing about ridiculous things. We were cracking fart jokes. I was like, this is great, man. I haven't done this in forever, you know? And the wildest thing was when we get to the top of this mountain in Colorado. By the way, he told me he was going to take me hiking, but it was hiking a 14,000-foot mountain. And I didn't know. And I'm from Brooklyn, so I showed up with Timberlands and denim jeans on. And he was like, you're going to be incredibly uncomfortable. And so he had to get me some boots and some proper, you know, synthetic pants so that I could actually walk on the trail. And I did it, and I was amazed at it. And we get to the top of this mountain. And first of all along the way, people are like amazed that I'm there. They're like, wow, where are you from? And I'm like, New York, and you're here? It's like, yeah. Have you ever done anything like this before? No. You know, I was amazed, Stacy was amazed, and we get to the top of the mountain, and I'm just like, this is incredible, bro. Like, you could just fall off of here. I'm like, where's the rail? And so Stacy, if he tells you about the first time that we went climbing together, that's what he'll tell you. Like, he got to the top of the mountain and literally asked where was the railing, right? There needs to be more safety here. But that was my experience. And it made me look back at my military experience and see my experiences in a different way, particularly zone in, focus on those naturalistic experiences that I had while I was in the military. And I was like, you know, that's pretty crazy that the military introduced me to the outdoors. So the reason why I'm showing you this photograph here is particularly because I realized one day when I was standing sentry in Iraq, when I was standing behind this machine gun, this is the Madus 50 caliber machine gun, the largest machine gun in the military, and it was my job to stand sentry one night, overnight. And I stood there behind this machine gun until the sunrise. And I could tell you, this is literally the complete and honest truth about my life, that the first time that I ever sat still long enough to watch the sunrise, I was standing behind this machine gun. And I realized that. There's a profound realization. There's a profound realization that I understood more about this machine gun, how to load it, how to clear it, how to correct different malfunctions with it, more than I even had ever thought about the sun rising on the earth. Something that I'd seen year after year, day after day. Now, I could have, when I grew up in Brooklyn, have gone to the top of, let's say, the building that I grew up in or different buildings that I lived in and caught the sunrise early in the morning, but it never really occurred to me to do that. But I was standing behind this machine gun when I first watched the sunrise. And for me as a human being on this planet, that it was a really profound experience and realization that I had about my relationship with the outdoors, or the lack thereof. And so I go from that moment hiking with Stacy Bear to in 7 years, it was about 7 years later that I was actually on Denali. And I summited Denali with a group of combat veterans through Veterans Expeditions, the organization that Stacy Bear created. And so here I am on the summit of Denali, not anywhere that I imagined this, you know, kid from Brooklyn would find himself, on the top of a mountain, in the highest mountain in the Arctic. And so I'm pretty much a nerd. That's a pretty correct thing you could say about me. And not only did I climb Denali with the group of combat veterans, but I did some social research on the experience. And how I did it was exactly in the way that I'm sort of doing in this presentation, where I discuss the commonalities between the combat experience and the experience that mountaineers are having in the field. Right? And so I love this picture. Actually, I hate this picture. But it's because it's before coronavirus. And this is the first time that I met with the team members from Full Circle. This is about half the team at this time. We had just gotten together. After I summited Denali, Conrad Anker, legendary athlete at the North Face, gave me a call and told me that I should prepare for a Denali expedition. And so I started preparing. Attempts to get me on, I should prepare for an Everest expedition. The attempts to get me on Everest early fell through, and then eventually Conrad Anker introduced me to Philip Henderson, who would lead our Everest expedition. And so I'm so happy in this picture. I don't think that I smiled this bright since before coronavirus. You know, in this picture, I'm on fire because I'm thinking we're about to go to Everest. I was actually going to do another sociological study on the climbing team for Everest as well. So not only was it recreation for me, not only was it this incredible, like, expansive adventure, but then it was also a professional thing for me as well. But then, obviously, when we first started planning, this coronavirus happened, and we had no clue what was in store. The entire plan fell through within a few months. Nepal canceled all permits on Everest and didn't know when they were going to open back up. Many of the companies that were figuring over whether or not they would accept our proposals for sponsorship were like, yeah, we don't have any time for that right now. You know, the whole world didn't have time for it, and I didn't imagine that it was possible for us to bring it back. And so I was incredibly depressed, which was really important reason why I was working with this team, because without the team, working in a team effort at that time, the Everest expedition wouldn't have happened, because I literally thought all was lost at this moment. But the team continues going. We continue trucking along. This was one of our training events on Rainier when we first got back together. And once coronavirus was kind of amenable, let's say. Now, the interesting thing about this was, now my dreams are coming true. We got through a year of coronavirus. Permits Nepal is eyeballing restarting the permits on Everest. Now I could start training for this expedition again. Oh man, this is gonna be grand. The first black team to go to Everest, the first black mountaineering team to go to Everest. And I get to be on it. It was incredible. And then I got into a motorcycle accident. Yeah, I always have tough luck. But that's part of the process, right? It's a whole part of the process. You meeting the objective, jumping over the hurdles, and continuing on however it is that you have to do it. And so let me explain to you really quickly how I got through this. First of all, the motorcycle accident was pretty devastating to me, based upon particularly the time where it was happening. The group first just gets back together. We have all the hope in the world. Sponsorship is coming through, and then wham, I'm in this motorcycle accident. I get a hip pointer, which basically felt like a broken rib for like a month. I couldn't laugh or cough or sneeze or anything like that. I had a bruised heel, which would actually be my most formidable injury. I had some weird injury with my shoulder because I didn't have a jacket on when I rolled off the bike, and so my shoulder took a lot of that impact, and I had abrasions all over my body and a sprained wrist. And now I got to get ready to be with the first black team to try to summit Mount Everest. And so, you know, at this time I was going through a lot of stuff. The whole world was. I had lost my job because coronavirus. I had, you know, kind of relocated, a place that I was unfamiliar with. I tossed my bike and myself, and I'm all broken, and now I got to get ready for this expedition. And so I had all these different complications, but there were certain things that I had to fortify myself, to sort of ground myself. And that was, all right, I had this big project in front of me. I had a lot of pain to endure. I needed to figure out how to heal myself and move on so I can train for this expedition. And one of the worst parts about it was because I was not teaching at the time, I was in between because of coronavirus. I didn't have great medical insurance for me to go and get, let's say, you know, some kind of physical therapist to help me out. But I'm a sociologist and I'm a nerd. So I just read a lot of journals. And I learned how to do ice water immersion on my own to heal my injuries, to rehabilitate my injuries. And I did a hell of a lot of yoga, right? At least like 2 hours or so of yoga a day. One when I would wake up in the morning just to get me moving so I wouldn't feel like the Tin Man. And then another one to just sort of get me to recover at the end of the day. And so it was through ice water immersion, a strict regimen of ice water immersion and yoga over months that I was able to rehabilitate myself to get ready for this expedition. And so here is what it looks like when we came to base camp. So these little yellow specks right there are not little. They're actually huge. They're huge tents. And some of these tents, like that one I know, couldn't even fit in a space like this. But that's how massive this mountain is, right? And I noticed, I recalled this from my time in the military when I first was looking out on, as I said, these wilderness vistas. And I had nothing of the modern world to sort of register, you know, my perception of the space to help me understand how vast everything was. And this is just another one of these experiences where like a rock, let's say like this, probably couldn't even fit in this entire auditorium, right? It's incredible to think about the vastness of these spaces. And the truth is like how antithetical it was to what I had lived earlier in my life, right? In project buildings with these small domiciles and concrete walls and all this, right? This is just wild and open space. It's so beautiful. And so, Full Circle Everest, we commence our expedition in April 2022. Here we are going across the ice fall. The ice fall is actually the most dangerous part of climbing Everest, and it's at the beginning. The ice fall is here. So imagine climbing, let's say about 2,000+ feet of this jumble of rocks to get to the first camp, which is on solid ground, Camp 1. And so that's what moving through the ice fall is like. You're going over crevasses, you're going over ladders. Sometimes you're Jumaring up the side of an ice wall, and it changes throughout just even a few hours. When the sun hits it, within 2 hours, 4 hours, the entire route could change. And I saw that during my expedition a number of times. And so the team's getting together here. This is at Camp 2 right before our summit push. It was a really arduous situation where we pushed up to Camp 3. We caught really bad weather and we thought we were going to be on a summit push, and we had to drop back down to Camp 2. And we didn't get to rest. The very next day, we had to go back up to Camp 3. By the way, between all of these camps, there's about 3,000 feet of climbing. So you don't get a rest day in between. That's exactly what all the training is for, because you have to learn how to make your body endure in those moments when you're at your lowest and you can't recuperate. One of the most difficult things is also trying to eat up there. You know, everything tastes like cardboard. So I guess one of the ways that we dealt with this, which is another really great benefit of having this amazing team, was that people would just make jokes about cardboard, you know, and we would sit there and try to chew it. But this group was great. This is my favorite photograph from Everest. My pictures from Camp 3 I love. And so this is Camp 3 looking down. Camp 2 is over here. As I said, it's like about 3,000 feet between Camp 3 and Camp 2. And then Camp 1 is down here. And then the ice fall that I was showing you earlier is actually down in the clouds over here. And then base camp is much further than that, down in the clouds back there. All right? And so at Camp 3, you are about 23,000 feet in the air. And that means that I'm 3,000 feet over the summit of Denali at this point. And on May 11th, the night of May 11th, Full Circle Everest finally made our summit push from Camp 4, which is around here, to the summit of Everest. And it was really, as I was saying, one of these moments where it's not the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm still not at that light at the end of the tunnel. I'm still achieving, and I'm still enduring this process of living a successful life, trying to live a successful life, building on that successful life with every step. And beyond Everest, summiting Everest, as we summited Everest that night, that morning, May 12th, the morning of May 12th, beyond Everest, I am still on this process of developing a successful life by trying to give this story back to people. Give this story back to the world, share it with the world, inspire more people, all types of people to get outside and challenge themselves. And it doesn't have to be something as big as Everest. It could be, you know, your daily walk. It could be your weekly bike ride. It could be your, let's say, bi-weekly workout or what have you. But all of these are steps toward developing ourselves as successful people. It's not a light at the end of the tunnel. It's a constant process that we're enduring, and we can endure it together. Thank you.
Brooklyn is in the house, yo! I'm from Brooklyn, that's why I said that. Okay. Hi, everybody. How's it going? This is, I don't even know that I can go after that. I have not climbed Everest. What was it, Cascade Mountain that we did? I've climbed Cascade. Thank you very much. My name is Myrna Valerio, and before I speak, I'm going to show you this video that I think encapsulates who I am. Some days, I just have to move, and I can't stop singing. This is going to be one of those days. Yep, I'm Myrna, the Myrnavator, ultra runner. Not what you pictured? Well, that's okay. I'm used to surprising people. But trust me, I'm not about to run 120 miles through the Rockies for shock value. I'm not just a runner. I'm a complex being. Here we go. I am more than what my body suggests to some people. I'm not supposed to be hiking 14ers. I'm not supposed to be warrior threeing. I shouldn't be an advocate for health and fitness, or for anything. I shouldn't be setting crazy goals or lining up with other people who don't look at all like me. But I do. Running is my therapy, my leisure, my lifeline. It's not about losing weight, it's about gaining life. This body is fierce, beautiful, and unapologetic. Why in the world would I want to change that? I'm Myrna Valerio, and I am an ultra, unstoppable woman of adventure. Thank you. Thank you. I did not write that copy. They made me say those things. Thank you all for having me. But the reason why I show this video is because, you know what? Close your eyes for a minute, if that's comfortable for you. And I want you to imagine a girl from Brooklyn who used to be very shy, very, very shy. I was so shy that I couldn't look people in the eye. Standing on a trail, we were on Mount Evans at this point, by the Chicago Lakes area. I'm standing on this trail, being primped and prodded by hair and makeup people, wardrobe people, directors, creative directors, producers, production assistants, and they're doing a film about me. And I'm on this trail, running up and down this trail. I was real tired, by the way. This 2-minute video took a week to shoot. Jordan, you know about these things, right? And I couldn't believe that I was standing there with Garmin, you know, one of the most important technological companies in the world. They were doing this film about me, and I couldn't believe that this was my life, that I was actually getting paid to do this, to run on trails and to be the talent and to do all these things and to create this what I think is beautiful art. And I still pinch myself every day. I'm like, wow, I get to do that. I was a teacher for 18 years, and I love teaching. Don't get me wrong, I love teaching. Y'all keep trying to bring me back to school. Keep trying to leave. But I taught in independent school for 18 years, and I loved it. But I have a larger platform now where I get to utilize my teaching skills and my performance skills and my love of nature to teach people to get out there and to enjoy nature. So that's who I am. This is also who I am. So this photo, I had just left teaching. And the reason why I left teaching was because there were a couple of reasons I left teaching. Because I had this burgeoning career as a speaker, as a sponsored athlete, which I'll get into in a little bit, as someone who did a lot of DEI work with different companies and brands. And so I was doing my second ever retreat where I brought people. I called it the Slow as Fuck Trail Adventures retreat. I'm slow. And there are other people that are slow that want to do really cool things in safe spaces and safe atmospheres. And so I had just gotten off a plane, and then I'd been on a bus from Vegas to St. George, Utah. That's where this is. And I was not feeling it. My friend who was co-hosting with me said, Myrna, I really want you to meet this photographer. She's so awesome. She's so cool. My friend is really pushy, as am I, but in a different way. And you really have to do a photo shoot. She's doing a series on women and adventure, and you'd be perfect. I'm like, I am tired. I just got back from Mexico. I'm really tired. But then I stopped to myself, and I was like, I am being a brat. I'm a brat. I'm a huge brat. I whine all the time. And I'm like, how dare I be in this beautiful space in beautiful clothes? I'd just gotten a sponsor, Skirt Sports. How dare I not express gratitude for the position that I'm in? So I started running and I started becoming more joyful. And it kind of looks crazy, but that's me. That's how I look when I run. And this picture has become very iconic in terms of my own brand. But this is who I am. It sums up what my core values are. Joy, I think that's pretty joyful. Adventure, community, inclusion, and learning, right? I was on my way to building community amongst people who were normally ignored by the adventure space. Fat people, people who are slow, people who maybe don't have a lot of experience in the outdoors. And I was creating that for them. And I allowed them spaces to learn. I allowed them spaces to be with other people. And we had a lot of fun. We did a lot of drinking. I'm from here. I don't live on, I'm not from the bridge, but I am from Brooklyn. I live here now in Winooski, Vermont, which apparently people say is Burlington's Brooklyn, but having been from Brooklyn, it's not Brooklyn. First of all, it's cold. I'm a trail runner primarily. This is my first love in the outdoors. This photo was in 2 issues ago in Runner's World, and it was an article about apparel for plus-size people, for fat people who do serious athletics. I'm a cyclist. I picked up a cycling sponsor too, but I'll tell you about that in a minute. So as you can see, I do a lot of photo shoots and a lot of video shoots, and this happened to be on a shoot in Montpelier, Vermont, where they said it was a green trail. But I'd run on this trail many times. I was like, are you sure it's a green trail? Because there's skinnies, and there's this, and there's that. It's very technical, and it happened to be very wet. If you can see the sheen on the boardwalk there. My riding partner didn't know I was eating it, but in this picture, she figured it out. 10 months later, I was fine, but I'm still a cyclist. Okay, so. I'm also a speaker. I'm a DEI facilitator, like I said. I'm an author of a best-selling book, A Beautiful Work in Progress. I'm working on my second book now about a black lady in the woods. Go figure. Okay, so I'm also a skier. I told a story earlier about how I became a skier in 2021. Just did my first black diamond on Sunday, this past Sunday, and I'm still nauseous. Thank you. This is my son. That's him smiling. He is so over everything. He's just so over me. He's over it. He goes to SUNY Purchase. He's a freshman there and is the standout rookie on the basketball team there, so I'm really proud of him. He does smile sometimes, actually. And so I wanted to tell you really quickly and sort of to contextualize why I get to do things that I do now. So I was a teacher. So in 2008, I was teaching at a boarding school called the Purnell School. It does not exist anymore in New Jersey. And so I was a teacher at boarding school, very small boarding school, all girls. So I don't have to tell this joke now, but well, okay, I'm not going to tell a joke. But anyway, so it was kind of like, Mrs. Garrett in Facts of Life. Come on, sing with me. You take the good, you take the bad, you take them both, and there you have. Thank you, not dating myself that much. Okay, so I'm there. I am also in grad school full-time for writing. I'm a dorm parent, and as a dorm parent, you do stuff on the weekends. You're on duty. You're an activity leader. You're taking people to Target and Walmart, and all those things, and ShopRite and all that on the weekends. But when I wasn't on duty on the weekends, I would travel to Maryland, 3 hours each way. And I would teach piano lessons, voice lessons, guitar lessons. I don't really play guitar. German lessons. I don't really speak German, but I can sing in it. So same thing. And composition lessons. I would arrange music. I did all this on the weekend. I took my son with me. And so I was really busy, right? I was doing everything I thought a successful black woman needed to be doing. I was killing it at my job. I was killing it. I was killing it being a private music teacher. Wasn't a great parent. I think my son would agree. But so I was doing that. And so on one of these trips back from Maryland, I started having chest pains. Left side of my chest. And I thought I was having a heart attack. Kept driving, which is stupid. Don't do that. I was an hour away from home. And so I get home, have a colleague drive me to the hospital, where I'm triaged immediately. 8 hours later, because they keep you there 8 hours later, unless you die beforehand. And it's okay, you can laugh. And they come and tell me that I didn't have a heart attack, right? I'd had a panic attack. And I was like, what? Me? Panic attack, doc. Black people don't have panic attacks. I don't know what you're talking about. We don't have time for that. We don't have time for that. This is exactly what I said to him. And he was like, ma'am, you had a panic attack. And based on all the stuff that you're doing that you told me about, that's what it was. Right? But I'm gonna have you see a cardiologist. I go to the cardiologist. He tells me I'm gonna die if I don't change my lifestyle. And actually asked me if I wanted to see my son grow up. And like, how do you answer that? I mean, yeah, yes. So that was when I started running again, right after that. And I started running again. 1 mile became 2 miles became 5K, that became 10K, half marathons. I tricked a friend into doing a half marathon with me. I said, hey, let's go do a ladies' weekend in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. She's like, sure. I didn't tell her it was a half marathon. I forgot that it was a race, but we're still friends. She did it, and it was awesome. And then I got the idea to do a marathon. A friend of mine said, hey, why don't you do a full marathon? I said, that's an awful idea. How do I sign up? So I signed up for my first marathon, Marine Corps Marathon 2011. And at the same time, I started a blog called Fat Girl Running, right? Because I'm fat, I'm a girl, and I run, right? Same thing back then, same thing now. And people were like, oh, why are you calling it fat girl running? You know, fat. I was like, well, because I'm fat. Well, I'm offended. Not talking about you, bro. It's about me, thank you. But why don't you call it fat to fit? Okay, so let's see. I do a half marathon nearly every weekend. I can swim 2 miles. I can play tennis for like 5 hours. I think I'm pretty fit. Well, what about just girl running? You're dumb. Okay, no, we're not doing it. So I started this blog, and I wrote about being a plus-size woman or a fat woman in endurance sports, where there weren't a whole lot of people that looked like me. So I'm writing. Sometimes it was a rant about the things that people would say to me. Oh, yeah, why don't you just go on a diet? You're going to ruin your knees. You ever hear that? Right? You're going to ruin your joints. Why don't you play tennis? I'm like, have you ever played tennis? Those people don't have any joints anymore. Anyway, so I wrote about those things. Wall Street Journal got wind of my blog. They were like, hey, we love your blog, in an email, right? And I'm like, you're reading my blog? I thought my mom only read my blog. You know, she would be like, oh, that's nice, honey. That's funny, honey. But they were reading my blog. They were like, can we interview you about having a fitness lifestyle without the focus on diet culture? I'm like, absolutely, that's my jam. And by the way, I'd lost 70 pounds while I was doing all of this and regaining my love for running. So Runner's World comes at me a couple weeks later. Hey, we love your blog. I'm like, everybody's reading my blog now. We love your blog. We love the piece about you in Wall Street Journal because it had set off this conversation about whether or not you can be fit and fat, whether or not you can be an athlete and look like me. And so they were like, would you be amenable? I know some people say amenable. There's 2 pronunciations. Look in the Webster Dictionary. I know, don't at me, okay? Because people do. And would you be amenable to an interview, a feature in Runner's World? I'm like, I don't see fat people in Runner's World unless it's a before and after. You know, this person was 600 pounds and now they're 90 pounds. That wasn't me. And those people always gain the weight back, by the way. So this happened. This is one of the 2 full-sized photos of me and my big black body running on a trail. This is down in Georgia. I worked in Georgia at this point. And then all this stuff started happening. Suddenly I was on NBC Nightly News with my man Lester Holt up there. It's kind of cute. Anyway, and so again, this continues this conversation of whether or not somebody like me can be an athlete, has the nerve to call himself an athlete. Then I got a book deal. My agent happens to be Obama's first agent, so, you know, just dropping names there. I was on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire because of this. And actually, the funny thing is that the Metal Flowers Media, which is the production company that does Naked and Afraid, they had reached out to me. And I was like, I'm a teacher. I can't do that show. I'll do it now. Anyway, so they had reached out to me. They wanted to do a show. We want to do an adventure show with you, not Naked and Afraid, with something where you're the host. I'm like, oh, cool, that fell through. But the person that had interviewed me started working for Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. She calls me on a restricted line. I thought it was a bill collector, so I ignored it. And she's like, I'm not a bill collector. I'm a producer, and I want you to be on this show. So I got on the show, won $10,000, because if I had won $1 million, you would know. And $10,000 and spent it immediately on my son because, you know, that's what parents do. It was really fun. The question that tripped me up was something about Daniel Day-Lewis, who I only knew as Lincoln. I didn't know he was he was the butcher guy in Gangs of New York. I didn't know, okay? Sorry. And my friend that I had brought as a +1 to be my pop culture person, she was like, I don't know. But anyway, it was super fun. And then, so that week, the week that the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire came on. It was also the week that I was on CNN twice. I was on CNN twice. And I had a race at the end of this week, right? So I was on TV a lot that week. I had a race at the end of the week. It was called the Black Mountain Monster, 12-hour race. And I was trying to do a 50K to train for this 6-day, 120-mile race. And so this is the filmmaker who is interviewing me at this race. I was like 18 miles in. I had a lot more miles more. And so the film that came out of this is called REI Presents The Myrnovator. It's a 12-minute film. I will not show it here. But this film, what happened, right, was during this race, I got an email. I was 28 miles in. I had a couple more miles to go. I got an email because I wasn't checking my email. I took my, okay, yes, I was. I took out my phone to take selfies, and then I got this email notification, so I tapped on a notification, and the subject line was running. And I thought, well, it could be one of my fans. It could be one of my student athletes. It could be one of the annoying parents, you know. So I clicked on it. I shouldn't have clicked on it. The first line was, "You are a liar and a fraud." And so it was this guy accusing me. His name was Josh, accusing me of not doing what I said that I did as a runner. And I was too overweight to run. I could walk faster than you can run. F you this, F you that. You are a fraud. You try to kill people with your perverse idea of beauty. This is an email that he wrote to my work account. Anyway. So while this film was supposed to be about a black lady running in the woods, because it's still a story, right, in terms of who's outdoors and who's not. But it turned into this film about this email and a larger message around that people thought that I didn't belong out there. I was too black, I was too fat to be out running a 50K, right? And that film, and the day that it was released on YouTube, hit 100,000 views in like an hour. And then it hit 200,000 views in like an hour and a half, then 300,000. And then they put it on Facebook and it hit 6 million views. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? But it struck a chord. It struck a chord within people. And I put when I got the email, I screenshot it and put it on Instagram, and got 500, immediately 500. I mean, I shouldn't have been checking my phone, you know, while I was running. But I got 500 comments, all amazing and all supportive and motivational. And then, but because of that, that happened in 2017. I got a lot of sponsors out of it. I got a lot of followers. So thank you, Josh. And then I left teaching. And I get to do really cool stuff like do the Marathon des Sables in Morocco. This is in the Sahara. It's my first time in Africa, even though my husband's African. My first time in Africa, and that was cool. It was a very interesting experience to try to get back into the country through Canada. They were like, "Where were you?" I'm like, "I don't actually know." Somewhere in the desert in Morocco. They're like, "But where?" Like, I don't know. Like, they dropped us off in the middle of the desert. Like, they literally drop you off in the middle of the desert on a bus. Like, and you don't know where you are. That's the whole like experience of it. I get to do things like this, be in shorts and a skirt on snow up in Tahoe, one of my favorite places. That was called Palisades, Tahoe. It used to be called Squaw Valley. I get invited to races all the time. Because of running, I get to learn new things like surfing. Yo, surfing. Any surfers in here? Yo. Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing. I thought that would be my new sport, but it's not. I got a sponsorship with Ford Bronco. Can you imagine me in my like little apartment in Brooklyn as an 8-year-old? I mean, like, I cannot have ever imagined that I would have a car sponsor. And this is the day that I got this sponsorship was the day that I said yes to a VW sponsorship, just verbally. And then Ford, after a long time of being really quiet and like crickets, they're like, okay, we're ready, after I said yes to the VW. But I had like two car companies coming after me. This is amazing, right? And I'm actually standing next to my property, and I'll talk about that in a minute. I got this sponsor. This is something I still cannot believe. They just renewed me for 3 years. Cannot believe it. Thanks, Josh. I have a bike sponsor, Salsa Cycles, and I only started riding bikes because I was injured from running. I did actually destroy my knee. Had surgery, and then I had to recover, and this is how I recovered. I tagged their bike in one of my posts. They were like, do you need a bike sponsor? And I'm like, do I? So now I ride bikes, and I do races and stuff. Yesterday, this is from yesterday, and I cannot believe this. And I'm getting a little emotional. This is my property that I bought a year ago, 3 days ago. The close of the sale happened while I was on a ski lift, and that's so important for me because yesterday, while I'm on this property, or a couple of days ago, which was a year to the day that I bought the property, I was on a ski lift, and some guy gets on, and we start talking. He's like, oh, yeah. I'm like, oh, where do you live? Are you local? He's like, oh, I'm from Elmore, Vermont. I'm like, oh, that's where my property is. And he's like, wow, oh, where do you live? Where's your property? I was like, oh, it's on Simmons Mill Road. He's like, that's where my property is. I had lunch with that guy and his partner yesterday while I was at my property filming and doing a photo shoot for L.O. Bean. And as you can see, I'm really happy, and I definitely matched the blazes of the trails that I had built a couple of months ago with my jacket. That was on purpose. But it makes me so happy and so filled with gratitude that I get to live the life that I live. I get to bring people into the fold. My family is so excited about this, and they love coming to Vermont. They love being on the trails. They love being in the snow because they used to hate snow before. And I get to do all this like super, super cool stuff. And so that's what, I get to live this life where I get to be outside all the time. This is me on my porch in Georgia, and a retailer that I shall not name, REI, did not accept this because it wasn't outdoorsy enough. But this is outdoors. I happened to be looking at the mountains across the Eastern Continental Divide, and they were like, no, we like, kayaking, class 4 rapids, that kind of thing, right? I like to backpack. I get to hike with my family in places like Arizona. My mom had never been on a hike before. My brother had never been on a hike before. This is my mom and my brother. Now my mom wants to learn how to ski. She's 65. I'm like, let's do it, right? I get to hang with people like Kara Richardson Whiteley, who is a plus-size woman who did Kilimanjaro 3 times, right? That's what this, and I was about to have knee surgery right after this. To be outside is, for me, a way of dealing with my very sort of, it's severe anxiety. It's actually diagnosed, severe anxiety and depression. And I remember this moment when I couldn't take it anymore. This is 2 years ago in March. But I had to do this work. I had to do a shoot for LL Bean. And so when I went outside with my friend who does a lot of my social photos, my outlook completely changed. My anxiety was mostly gone. I felt better. I felt better able to deal with the world and all that was required of me. That's what outside is to me. This is my son when he was 16. As you can see, he's not very happy with me hugging him. But this is after he was found after going missing in the Copper Canyons in Mexico. I learned so much from that time. He learned so much. And I was so proud of him because he had all of these outdoor skills. He knew how to be on trails. He knew how to get himself found. And if you know anything about the Copper Canyons, it's where all the narcos are. It's very dangerous once it starts to get dark. A lot of people die, they go missing. He was missing for 4 hours. My third book will be about this. I already started writing it. In this picture, I did this picture with the same photographer I worked with on my property. And this is what my nephew does when he comes to Vermont. He's a New Yorker. He's from Brooklyn. He has autism. So his, he's always up here, always just like so busy and so his brain is just like firing all the time. And when he comes to Vermont, he sits in the back of my car and he opens the window and he's like, he takes a deep breath. And he's so happy. He's so happy. He's also like pretty obsessed about Vermont. And that's okay. But that was my homage to him. I love the outdoors. And again, I'm really, really psyched to get to do what I do. I'm heading to Keystone, Colorado next week, where I get to ski for work. They're paying me. Can't believe it. I get to meet incredible people. I get to hear stories like Dom's. I get to be in places like NCS and access wild places. So exciting. So I wanted to tell you my story because I think that it's important to know that I am a living, breathing example of what happens when you pour into marginalized communities. My first outdoor experience is when I went to camp when I was 8 in the Catskills, and it was a public-private partnership, and that's where I fell in love with the outdoors. So please continue doing the work that you're doing. Please invite people into your circle and do things with them. You never know when you're gonna change a life and change someone's trajectory. Thank you. Oh, I was also in this commercial, but you can, if you watch football. Oh, is the big game happening? The Super Bowl. This has been playing all season and last season during football. It's an LL Bean commercial. You'll see it at some point. I won't play it because I've gone over my time. Sorry, because I talk a blue streak. Oh, okay. It's okay. Sorry, because I don't know how to do this. It's 2 minutes.
How was your morning?
It was great. I watched the sunrise.
Oh, you're so lucky.
All my life is changing every day.
You guys have it up there?
Every possible way.
Come on. Up.
I know I felt like this before, but now I'm feeling it even more because it came from you.
I got my bean boots on. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, last thing. You take this. So as Younga said, I am a singer. And I've been thinking a lot about the things happening in the world recently. Actually, last week, a young man by the name of Tyree Nichols was murdered. And it really hit me, well, all of those murders hit me, and this hit me in particular because this is a man that really loved to be outside. He was a skateboarder, and he found joy in doing that. And so I wanted to pay homage to him and his life and to the lives of countless other Black men by singing a song from Porgy and Bess, the opera, My Man's Gone Now. Because it wasn't just about a woman's relationship with her husband, it was just about the loss of men, the loss of Black men. So it's had a larger meaning than a romantic meaning, and I wanted to pay some honor by singing this song. My Man's Gone Now.
treat. Oh, you have to stay up, both of you. Sorry, we're going to do a Q&A.
Really making us work.
I know. What a treat. I hope all of you are filled. We're going to do a Q&A, give you an opportunity to ask either and both Dom and Myrna questions about their presentations tonight. And we're running a little bit late, so let's be mindful of the time. I don't know, you all can repeat the question. Sure. And I will repeat it. You have a lot. Hi.
Questions? Comments? No? Okay, let's go. I don't have my glasses on, so I can't really see. So
I think they're still shocked from your song. I mean, I am. I have lots of questions for you, but I'm going to see you after this. So.
yes.
What attracted you to Vermont? Again, aside from the beauty of it.
What attracted me to Vermont? Sorry. I know better. So after I left teaching, I was home in Brooklyn for a little bit. And I was like, I can't live here. It's a lot. I prefer to be in the mountains. And so I came up to Vermont for a week of fun, winter adventure. We snowshoed. We took a snowboard lesson where I decided that was not my sport. The whole wrist thing. I like my wrists. And I couldn't, my knees just didn't do that. So I had great food. And for me, what was really important is I was in a very conservative community in Georgia, very rural Georgia. That wasn't the greatest place for me and my son, tall black kid. And I also did DEI work down there, so my blood pressure was not great. So I decided to move out of there, out of Brooklyn. And I'm in Vermont, and I'm in Montpelier, and I see there's a pride flag, there's a Black Lives Matter flag, and I said, this is where I need to be. And so I found an apartment the week that I was in Vermont adventuring. I found an apartment, moved in the next month, and I'm never leaving. Thanks. There was another hand. Yeah, okay.
As someone who struggles to find clothes that fit me in the outdoor world, I was wondering how you do that, and do the brands that work with you then offer better clothing for not?
Yes and no. Well, the brands that I work with now, LL Bean does have, they've had for a long time a larger size selection. While they're not the most fashionable, the stuff works, it's technical, it fits. Columbia is another company that does really good work in that way, but their stuff isn't super technical. So if I'm trying to do something, say in the Wind Rivers or something like that, I have to be very careful about my gear. REI, on and off, has a good selection, not great colors. Everything is black and brown and olive green, which, that kind of sucks for people who like to express themselves with color and stuff. But yeah, Arc'teryx is working on it. Marmot's working on enlarging their sizes. So the work is being done. Is it being done quickly enough? No. But there is stuff out there. Lululemon, when I signed on with them in 2020, I actually said no to them a couple of times. I was like, first of all, you don't like fat people. Second of all, you don't even have clothes that will fit me. But they're like, can you please just give us a chance? We are developing clothes up to size 20. They're going to go up to size 24 in the next couple of years. And they have actually been really good to me. So they're doing the work. They hire consultants. We have conversations all the time about sizing and language around that. Should we call it plus size? Should we call it extended sizes? Should we not call it anything? That sort of thing. So yes, the work is being done, and I get to be part of it, which is awesome. Thank you. Yes.
So my question is for Dom.
You have it.
We heard about Myrna's Josh, and I'm wondering if you had a Josh in your life who tried to tear you down, but then ended up either motivating you or opening new doors for you.
Oh, I was like, who's Josh? Yeah. Man, did I have a Josh? Let me think about that. Not when it came, actually, this is very interesting, being a person of color in the outdoors. black person that I ever climbed with was a member of Full Circle, and it was like 3 years before the team actually started. If I would have spoke to you 2 weeks ago, I would say the only black people that I ever climbed with outside were all members of Full Circle. But then 2 weeks ago, I had the great pleasure of going to an ice fest in Colorado, and there were more black people in the outdoors there than I'd ever seen. And so, you know, I guess this is another situation where things are changing, right? But, you know, so I never had, let's say, like a person who harassed me as directly, you know, as Myrna. You know, I think that that's a terrible situation, and you you really made a lot of lemonade out of that.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Yeah. But, you know, something that I talk about often when I talk about diversity in the outdoors is the issue of belonging. You know, I could say for, you know, the first decade of me climbing outside, I would say that I didn't belong. I felt like I didn't belong. Even though I make jokes about, you know, my first climb on a 14er with my buddy Stacy, you know, throughout that climb, Stacy actually, he apologized to me at some point during the climb, because every person on the mountain that passed me were like, whoa, it's a black dude here. And they were like, why are you here? You know, where are you from? You know, what motivated you?
Where are you
to
from?
Yeah, where are you from? Brooklyn. You know, I climbed staircases in training for this. But, you know, so it was an issue of belonging for me that always in the outdoors. And it wasn't until fairly recently that I started to see people of color in those spaces. So yeah, I didn't have a Josh, but just that feeling of not necessarily feeling like I belong was quite a hurdle, and also a motivator. I'm no Myrnavator. I'm no Myrnavator, but I'm motivated. You know.
It's like the Terminator, like Myrnavator.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. You had said that you joined the Marines so you could go.
No Marines.
Or military, so you go to college, but then you got called up. When did you find time to then finish your studies?
Oh, I mean, this is why I don't need a Josh. I'd kick my own ass all over the place. So yeah, so in the story that I was telling about my development, as soon as I came back from Iraq, as soon as I redeployed from Iraq, when I came home from Iraq, the first thing that I did was get an apartment across the street from the school the college that I dropped out of. So the very first semester that I could re-enroll, I did.
Oh, okay.
Within like 2 months, I was back in school, and within 2 years from that, a year and a half from that, I had finished my undergraduate studies.
Oh, okay.
And actually, you know, I see some of you guys are like, wow, you know, that's amazing. But actually, it was something, I had a question from a young man earlier, and I felt, when I look back at that moment of my life, I felt like that actually was not a good decision to do that, to go right into my studies after serving and having such an experience, having the experiences that I had when I served. It would have been a lot better for me, actually, if there were programs like outdoor programs that I knew of at that time. It would have been much better for me to do something like that than to go right back to school. I suffered immensely trying to go right back to school and put myself back in an urban environment, back in you know, the hustle and bustle and the rat race, and it was incredibly difficult. So I think that veterans programs give vets a nice segue after service, especially depending upon what the quality of their service was like, you know, to get some footing in the civilian world before you just go at it at my next obstacle for achievement, you know? Yeah.
So I'm from SUNY Adirondack, and we got some folks in the house, right? Where we at, SUNY? And I have my outdoor professor here with us. And we had different conversations about what you just mentioned, right? How can we get someone to at least try our outdoor education program, right? So you are a returning adult student. So what would be a hook maybe that we could implement to try to help expose more people to our outdoor education program?
Certainly. You know, this is a really great question. And actually, I won't refer you to reading my dissertation. It's kind of a bore, but it's all really about this. And like, you know, well, so we have some offline nerding to do, you know? So, but really it's about community. It's about community. I could say when I came back from Iraq, one of the biggest problems that I had was I was a sore thumb. Like, I didn't fit in. And you could imagine what that was like being, I was what, 22, 23 at the time? But I don't have the experiences of a regular 23-year-old or 22-year-old. I come into a college classroom and all these students are talking about these far-off places in the world and these far-off politics and the war in Iraq and the war in Afghanistan and oh, this is so terrible and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, this is actually the reality of my life that I know very well. And it was difficult for me at the time to share anything. I literally, you know, I was a bank of knowledge for students in undergrad, but I wouldn't share it. The last thing that my professors would have thought would be that I would complete a PhD and that I would become a professor, because I literally sat in the back of the class with my hood on and my sunglasses on, you know? And they'd be like, young man, turn your headphones off. Like, oh, I don't even have headphones on, you know? But they didn't understand what was wrong with me. But I felt like I was, you know, a spectator in the civilian world. Like, but it didn't really include me. And that was underscored in conversations in class that we had about wars and everything. A lot of students didn't know that they were speaking to a combat veteran. And many things that they said made me feel unwelcome. You know, I won't get too into the weeds with this, but I even was in a class when a student said, you know, all these people who joined up for the military and then they go to Iraq and Afghanistan and die, I don't really care. Like, that's what they wanted. And you could imagine that I was fuming. You know, I was boiling, you know, brimming. And all I did was I tapped on my desk really hard. Actually, I punched it, okay. And then I looked at my professor and he nodded to me and he knew, and I knew that was, you can leave. And I just left and I went home. And I didn't share my story. What's that?
You found your job.
Okay, that was my Josh. You got a point there. But yeah, so the issue is really belonging. So if you're going to create a community around outdoor activities, that's going to lure people in. But one of the important things, especially when you're dealing with combat veterans, that community, veterans will respond really well to aggressive activities, especially if they had them in the military, right? Because it's a point for them to, let's say, prove their self and their quality. But that's not what we're here for. You're there trying to build community. And so I would say build community, and you don't have to try to do it around the most aggressive outdoor activities. It could be sort of soft pedaling, you know, hikes and, you know, whatever sort of level people are at, and you speak to that level. But building community is a really important thing. And when I first started climbing, even though the broader climbing community didn't feel like my community because it was so homogenous and I stood out, the veterans that I was climbing with, I belonged with them. And you couldn't tell me otherwise, and they wouldn't tell me otherwise. And so that was why I was doing it.
You were telling us a lot during your journey. You know, you're going to school and then something else came up, so you had to like diverge and kind of change courses. I know you're a professor right now. Is there anything new that's kind of jumped into your life out of nowhere and you're kind of rolling with? Anything new for your journey?
I mean, I guess the newest thing in my life is that I'm rolling with, and I'm trying to roll with the punches with, is that I'm actually not a professor right now. But, you know, I was explaining to you guys some of my issues during coronavirus because I had lost this job where I was teaching in Pennsylvania. But then I went on to be a part of this expedition, and I actually went and lived in Nepal for 6 months, and 4 of those months were preceding the expedition. So I didn't teach at all, and you know, honestly, that was great. I needed the time. I never took the time for myself. As I said, I jumped right out of the war, went right into undergrad, and I never stopped. You know, finished undergrad, Capitol Hill, activism, documentaries, went into graduate school, finished a PhD, did the next thing, on some of the Denali, now I'm on Everest. And it's like, whoa, finally, you know, coronavirus kicked me in the ass and was like, no, now you gotta sit still. And I hated it. I hated it. I found I didn't even know how to sit still. You know, it drove me crazy. It drove me insane. And like, and I think a lot of us realized that during coronavirus, that we needed to be so active and not focusing on ourselves, you know, in order to feel like we were progressing in our lives. Well, you know, for me, this is a whole new epoch of my life. It's a whole new area where like, I'm not just running after some goal. You know, I'm kind of sitting still and thinking about it. And honestly, it's the first time that I even had the opportunity to do that. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, I'm sorry, but we are running a little bit late, and we probably
Sorry.
won't go forever. But I just wanted to, number one, have us all show gratitude to Don.
Oh, what are you clapping for? I'm clapping. Oh.
I don't think we could have imagined a more inspiring night, and led by two unbelievably inspiring and talented human beings. So thank you for gracing us with your presence and your talents and your stories. And thank you all for being part of this, because by being here, you're also demonstrating our commitment to making sure that we're doing our part to make the Adirondacks and the North Country as inclusive as possible. And as I led off earlier, we have a long way to go. But I believe that tonight is one of those success stories that's part of achievement. And I hope that each of you took something from tonight, and probably took many different things. So take that out of tonight, bring it to tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day. And again, thank you for coming. And one more time, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.